boy DEMEGODTV.
It's Wave God in this motherfucker. Hey, shout my nigga Demi Tito.
Got song pop like I'm Iggy. All they talking about is last night like I'm Demi. Say you got.
Groupies donated $5. Damn ski pulled the Michael.
Let's see what the
What's up, Dean family, Dean Nation? Today we're doing a reaction to the rumors, and it's called The Real History of Slavery of Southern Negro. You feel me? And it's something we're going to learn about and probably educate ourselves about, because something we didn't know about. And it's also Black History Month, so we're going to educate ourselves about some stuff that they probably didn't tell us in school. You feel me? And yeah, if you're new to the channel, like, comment, subscribe, and share the video on all social medias. And comment below what reaction you want me to do next, or anything dark or black, melanated, copper complexion, you feel me, about our history, not just American history, you feel me, in the comment section below. And hope you guys like this and enjoy it. Check out the Dean TV clothing merch in the description box. So go copy you some heat and drill. Hope all y'all safe through this Corona season, you feel me? And no further ado, let's get into this reaction.
Your master, your missus.
Been slaves all our lives. My mother was a slave, my sister was a slave, father was a slave.
They treat me nice as they could treat me. And if I want anything,
The slave passed down from generation.
I'll ask for it. I was taught it that way.
Makes sense.
By my old master.
These are the voices of former slaves, victims of one of America's greatest crimes against humanity. Listening to them speak and hearing their lamentations does a different level of justice than history books ever could.
One thing about slavery is, it's crazy that slavery was legal once upon a time ago, and it's like people want to talk about what's crime, this, that, and third, but literally stuff that used to be a crime was once upon a time legal. So you gotta think about that.
John Henry Folk was a storyteller and radio show host who in 1941 started doing interviews with former slaves in a project to bring awareness to racism. One former slave he interviewed was Fountain Hughes. Little did Folk realize this interview would be one of his most important.
My name is Fountain Hughes. I was born in Charlottesville, Virginia. My grandfather belonged to Thomas Jefferson. My grandfather was 115 years old when he died.
Damn.
And now I am 101 years old.
Although many slaves were kidnapped or abducted, Hughes was different. He was born of slaves, as was his father. He didn't know any other life.
It was what they call, we were slaves. We belonged to people. They sell us like they sell horses and cows and hogs and all like that. Have an auction bench, and they put you up on the bench and bid on you, the same as you're bidding on cattle, you know.
The auction.
And it's crazy how people love to talk about sports and all this other shit. And literally it's like slavery, like basketball players, slavery, like you bidding on these players. That contract, they bidding on your ass, like the best bidder gonna get you, you feel me? Like these athletes and all this other stuff, bro, they slaves to the game. Stay woke, people. Pay attention.
Bench was an infamous place among slaves. Here, people would learn not only who their future masters would be, but exactly what price a person could put on another person.
Sell women, sell men. And then if they had any bad ones, they'd sell them to the nigger traders, what they call the nigger traders, and they'd ship them down south and sell them down south.
After leaving the auction, they would be at the whims of their new masters. Of course, when someone is considered to be a piece of property rather than a person, little is done to make them comfortable. Deplorable living conditions, tattered and worn out clothes, and sometimes a bare minimum of food were all that slaves were given.
Other people didn't have no beds when they were slaves. They all slept on the floor, patted here, patted there. Just like a lot of wild people, we didn't know nothing. Didn't like looking no booger.
Often, the slaves were only dressed in what they showed up in, made mostly of rag and cloth. The lucky ones may have had a pair of shoes or some denim.
So I didn't never wore no shoes until I was 12 or 13 years old.
Crazy and sad.
Now people put on shoes on babies,
To
you know.
see actually where we come from
I don't know.
to now,
Put shoes on babies just soon
bro,
as you
it's
see
a
them, just
development,
stick
it's
that
an
shoe on.
evolution.
Not much attention was given to the slaves' diet. More times than not, they would only have things like soups or stews made from the scraps of the master's dinner.
Wooden tray dug out, all about that long. And all of them, would get around that tray with spoons and just eat. Sit like mush or soup or something like that. And all of them
We
children
all
get around
came
there
from
and
a long way,
just
literally.
Slaves had no weekends, no holidays, no days off. Each day was filled with nothing but work and meeting the needs of the masters.
Night never comes, though.
Selfish motherfuckers. And still with the same mindset.
If they
Set
want
up.
you to cut all night long out in the field, you cut. And if they want you to hang all night long, you hang tobacco. It didn't matter about your being tired, you're afraid to say you're tired.
It wasn't a sense of duty that compelled the slaves, nor was it a love for their owners. A cloud of dread hovered over them, as the smallest infraction could mean a painful punishment, usually in the form of beatings. Former slave Laura Smalley described what she saw one day when another slave woman earned a whipping after her master's mistress tried to slap her and she fought back, pushing her into a chair.
What, bitch?
Poor old woman carrying the peach orchard.
So she got punished for standing up for herself? What type of dumb shit is this? Hey, yo, what the fuck? Hey, we had a bad, bro. And that shit still going on now. Bro, that shit retarded.
I remember that this is well, looked like
You
to
can't
me, I
never win for losing. What the
and down
fuck?
a tree and whipped her. And well, she couldn't do nothing but just kick her feet, just kick her feet. But it just had her clothes all down to her waist,
Fuck.
Just didn't have her plumb naked, but they had
That
her
look
clothes down to her waist.
painful as shit. You gotta think, people.
Every now and then they'd
You gotta
go,
actually think about this. Somebody actually throwing a whip like that at your back.
Snuff pipe out on her. You know, them was in the pipe, but we don't see the pipe smoking. Blow them out on her? Good Lord.
Even though slavery was a practice in which evil was free to roam, there were still some owners who aspired to be better, treating the slaves with more dignity and decorum. Having a master who would speak with kindness, show courtesy, and treat them as humans was among the most coveted things any slave could ask for.
They treat me nice as they could treat me. And they're all treating me nice. All the white folks should know that they treat me nice. And if I want anything, I'll ask for it. I was taught it that way by my old master. Don't steal, don't lie. And if you want anything, ask for it. Be honest in what you get. That's what I was raised up with.
Even though the masters would preach honesty, they were still not very trusting. Simply going out, even on the orders of the master, required a number of steps.
Now, I couldn't go from here across the street, or I couldn't go to nobody's house without I have a note or something from my master. And if I had that pass, that's what we call a pass. If I had that pass, I could go wherever he sent me, and I'd have to be back. Whoever he sent me to, they'd give me another pass, and I'd bring that back, so it's to show how long I'd been gone.
One of these so-called healthy foods actually drains a guy's T levels, which is his number one muscle-building fat-burning hormone.
Just like that.
With the
Bring that back, so it's to show how long I'd been gone.
With the passage of the Emancipation Proclamation, the slaves were free, but only by degree. They weren't truly as free as they thought. Union soldiers, who slaves once thought of as liberators, would sometimes pass through and not give a second thought to the people they helped to free.
So the slave that was in war wasn't free, didn't get released. Well, wasn't free from whatever slavery where they were supposed to be. That's wild.
When the Yankees come along and took all the good horses and
they said, we're going to free some of y'all.
sold out all the meat and
Some of y'all
sugar
benefit.
and stuff out in the road.
We got to capitalize on that, you know what I'm saying?
And they know the people wouldn't have nothing to live on, but they done that. And if you was cooking anything to eat in there for yourself, and if they was hungry, they would go and eat it all up, and you didn't get nothing. They'd just come in and drink up all the milk. Just do as you please.
Slavers across the South were incredibly hesitant to change after the order, not only because they were losing the labor they paid for, they were losing an entire heritage. Not taking too well to the new proclamation by President Lincoln, the slavers actively withheld the life-changing information from their slaves, sometimes to the point that slaves would end up working on the plantations for up to 6 more months.
What the fuck? Hey, yo! Ain't no way.
No, he didn't tell them wait till.
That shit wild.
I think now the state is wait till 6 months out of that. 6 months.
Without guidance, though, many of the slaves found their newfound freedom less glamorous than they had thought. With not $1 to their names, very few possessions, and little to no education, they found themselves alone. Sadly, millions of newly released slaves, unable to make a living, ended up becoming emaciated, even dying as a result of starvation.
That's sad.
If we got free, we didn't know nothing to do. And my mother, she hunted places and bound us out for $1 a month. We didn't have no property, we didn't have no home. We had nowhere, nothing. We didn't have nothing on it, just like cattle, just turned out and get along the best you could. Colored people is free, you ought to be awful thankful. And some of them are sorry they are free now. Some of them now would rather be slaves.
Although freedom had been granted, they realized that it came with a heavy price tag. Even though slavery meant hard work and beatings, it also meant having food and shelter.
Mom and them didn't know where to go, you see, after freedom broke. Just like he turned something out, you know. Didn't know where to go. They just where to stay. Didn't know where to go. Turn us out just like, you know, you turn out cattle. I say, didn't know where to go.
The slave's freedom was met with mixed emotions. Fountain Hughes was asked about how he felt about his freedom and whether or not he would rather have been a slave again. His answer was haunting.
You know what I'd rather do? If I thought, had any idea, that I'd ever be a slave again, I'd take a gun and just end it all right away. Because you're nothing but a dog.
This period was one of the darkest times in the history of the United States. But even though slavery was eventually abolished in
the United States mean black people.
States, it is quite a different case worldwide. From forced labor to human zoos, or areas of the world where visitors would travel simply to gawk at the local indigenous people. Whatever its form, though, the voices of the slaves matter, bringing to light the sad truth that slavery is not dead today.
Hope you guys like that, Dean Family, D Nation. Like, comment, subscribe.